Cowboys didn't drink coffee because they liked the taste. They drank it because without it, they couldn't survive the day. Picture waking up in complete darkness, hours before sunrise, with your whole body aching from 16 hours in the saddle the day before. That was every morning on a cattle drive, and the only thing standing between a cowboy and total collapse was a battered tin cup of coffee, so strong it was nicknamed Brave Maker. By the 1870s, coffee wasn't just a drink on the trail. It was fuel. It was medicine. It was the only reliable comfort in a life that offered almost none. Let's start with the schedule, because it explains everything. Cowboys on a cattle drive woke up around 3:30 or 4 in the morning, often called by the cook banging a pot or shouting, "Come and get it." Breakfast had to be fast, it had to be filling, and it had to jolt an exhausted body into motion immediately. Coffee did that job better than anything else available on the frontier. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Cowboys weren't sipping some smooth, balanced brew. Trail coffee was brutal. Beans were roasted in a skillet over the campfire, then crushed by hand, sometimes with the butt of a revolver or a hammer, since grinders were rare and heavy to haul. The grounds went straight into a pot of boiling water with no filter at all. The result was thick, bitter, and packed with grounds that settled at the bottom of the cup. Cowboys had a phrase for the perfect batch, strong enough to float a horseshoe. Why so strong? Because it had to work fast and it had to work hard. A cowboy might only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep before starting another 16-hour day. There was no coming back for a second cup at 10 a.m. One shot before dawn had to carry a rider through heat, dust, and danger until the next meal, which might be 8 or 10 hours later. And the job itself demanded constant alertness. A herd of 2,000 or 3,000 cattle could stampede over a sound as small as a dropped pan, say, or a clap of thunder. Riders had to stay sharp enough to react in seconds, even on almost no sleep, even after weeks on the trail with no real rest. Coffee wasn't a luxury in that world. It was survival equipment, right alongside a good horse and a sturdy rope. There's also a reason coffee worked so well as currency for morale. Life on a cattle drive was miserable in almost every measurable way. Historians estimate cowboys earned around $25 to $40 a month, worked in brutal heat and freezing cold, ate the same simple meals day after day, and went weeks without a proper bath. Coffee was one of the only pleasures that cost almost nothing and required almost no effort to make. A trail cook, often called Cookie, carried coffee as one of the most essential supplies in the chuck wagon, right up there with flour, salt, and beans. Running out of coffee on a long drive wasn't just inconvenient. It could crush the whole crew's spirits. Now here's the twist most people don't expect. Cowboys weren't just drinking coffee to wake up. They were drinking it constantly throughout the day, whenever there was a break, whenever the herd settled, whenever the cook had a pot going at camp. Some accounts suggest cowboys could drink a dozen cups or more in a single day. That's not modern coffee shop sipping. That's a working man's fuel source, consumed in huge quantities because the alternative was falling asleep on a horse in the middle of dangerous ice. High-stakes work. There's a reason a specific brand became legendary on the frontier. Arbuckles' Ariosa coffee, first sold in the 1860s, came pre-roasted in 1-pound bags, which was revolutionary at the time. Before Arbuckles, cooks had to roast raw beans over an open fire, which was slow and inconsistent. Arbuckles has changed that. and it became so popular on cattle drives that some cowboys reportedly valued a good cook, partly on how well he handled the Arbuckles' bag. The company was so trusted that trail crews would sometimes trade almost anything for an extra bag if supplies ran short. Coffee even shaped daily rituals and friendships out on the range. Around the fire at night, after the cattle were finally settled and the second watch had gone out, cowboys would gather with what was left of the pot, talk, tell stories, sometimes sing. It was one of the few moments of the day that felt human instead of purely physical. In a life defined by exhaustion, silence, and distance from home, a shared cup of coffee at the end of the day was as close to comfort as most cowboys got. Compare that to how we treat coffee today. Most of us complain if our order takes 10 minutes or if the foam isn't quite right. We have oat milk, cold brew, and 6 different roast levels to choose from. Cowboys had one strength, strong, one method, boiled, and one purpose: keep moving before the sun even had a chance to rise. So the next time your alarm goes off and you reach for a cup of coffee before facing the day, think about a man on horseback in 1875, half asleep in the dark, drinking something thick enough to float a horseshoe, because without it, there was no getting through the next 16 hours alive. Cowboys didn't drink coffee because they liked the taste. They drank it because it was the only thing standing between them and complete collapse, one bitter cup at a time.